And we are doing what has been a wonderful report and case study on different countries to show our global competencies. Hope you enjoy. To start off, we have a couple of questions. How does the political and societal history of a country influence its education systems? And can we notice any trends or similarities between regions and globally in the world? Um, what are some human rights issues that we can observe in the countries that we research? So the two countries that I chose to do were Kenya and South Africa. Before Kenya got its independence in 1963, there were a lot of issues. I mean, both countries had a lot of issues. Some of them dealt with apartheid, which kind of mirrors the U.S. experience for the fight for civil rights. Probably very, very similar in the rights that were taken away from people. Land Act, which dealt with the country basically forcibly moving groups of Africans to what they considered their original homeland. So that deals with the massive eviction. And then, of course, suppression of democracy because before these countries got their independence, they were being run by entities that did not necessarily have their interest in mind. Okay, so now what we see, and I'll go a little bit deeper in future slides. The Kenyan government has done a lot, as well as the South African government, to invest in education and to kind of change the landscape of their country. And I mean that literally and figuratively. And so there has been free and compulsory basic education provided at the primary level, which was not a thing before Kenya gained independence. And South Africa also invested a very large amount of money into, I think it was about 19%, give or take, of their federal funding to support education, which was seen as like a really big investment in the world to just fund education. Um, South Africa does have a lot of improvements in its economy. It's also being seen as a very large political player, a dominant figure in the region. So it does have some positives that it has accomplished and attained since independence. However, there is a lot of political instability that took place after independence, terrorist attacks due to ethnic tensions and differences, and there are other governmental issues that dealt with new parties emerging and people fighting for power and control, which definitely takes a toll on and affects education as well as other things in. So on a global scale, we already talked about apartheid and just kind of thinking about if apartheid can feed into tribal and ethnic differences between people who are the same color but have different ethnic labels. Um, just thinking if that could be a contributor. The mere fact that countries were colonized for so long itself is an injustice because people um, at some point in time, there was a partitioning of Africa, and all of these different countries, Poland, different countries in Europe, France, Spain, everybody wanted to grab. It was this massive land grab, and that destroyed a lot of, in my opinion, and I'm sure research will support, a lot of progress that was being made and a lot of the good things that were happening in Africa. So it set people back, definitely. It set these countries back. Let's see which one. Oh, the efforts to undermine human rights for affordable care. It was like this legal ban for 39 different pharmaceutical companies to to ban generic AIDS drugs. And that to me is a global injustice, especially if it happens in other places when you are keeping people from access to things that will keep them healthy and keep them alive. Um, and the trickle down idea, this notion that if the people at the top are wealthy, that the money will trickle down. That's an injustice as well, and that's been seen in Haiti and even some places in the U.S. On a different level. So I'm at 5 minutes now, so I'm gonna go. The apartheid system and all of these other different political things that we are talking about today definitely are to blame for the country's education system not properly recovering and not being able to properly educate their population of African people. So many people cannot read or are illiterate and could not do some of the basic things that we would be able to do in our education system because of the law that systemically supported um, Africans not progressing in the same sense that we have here in America. So also just showing really quickly how radically different it is for children who are in rural areas versus children who are in urban areas and the types of situations that they have to encounter in school, not having running water, not having electricity, books. It's an issue. So the last thing that I want to say is just that when we think about how do we fix this, if we really focus on what we as a world, as a global community can do for people who have been sort of thrown into a situation that was the fault of the world's mindset at that time. Many different countries took so much. Empires, imperialism, colonialism took so much from Africa, and how much are we giving back to make sure that the people can recover from something that wasn't their fault? So being equitable, being compassionate about our global neighbors, and making sure that we contribute to their development would be a way that I would see to help to ameliorate this issue. Thank you for listening. Have any questions? You know where to find me.